U.S. Catholic bishops are urging the FDA to create an ethical COVID-19 vaccine that does not use any old cell lines that were created from the cells of aborted babies. The four bishop chairmen of committees for the U.S. bishops sent a letter to the FDA in mid-April, writing in part, quote, "It is critically important that Americans have access to a vaccine that is produced ethically. No American should be forced to choose between being vaccinated against this potentially deadly virus and violating his or her conscience." Archbishop Joseph Naumann of Kansas City, Kansas, is the chairman of the U.S. Bishops' Committee on Pro-Life Activities. He signed this letter to the FDA and joins us now via Skype. First off, Your Excellency, a lot of Catholics may not be aware that coronavirus vaccine development could even have a connection to abortion. Can you walk us through what are the ethically problematic cell lines?
Yeah, so unfortunately, there's been a history in creating vaccines, in some cases anyway, of using cell lines from aborted fetuses. Um, and so some of the vaccines that are commonly used today have this ethical problem. We as a church, obviously, we see this as a moral issue that we don't want to do anything that uh, in some way gives support for the idea of abortion. Um, on the other hand, I think in some cases where there are no other ethical choices and for public health reasons, Catholics may be forced to use these vaccines, even though we object to the way that they were developed. But the church says we have an obligation to object to that and to advocate for ethical vaccines to be developed. So with the coronavirus, we're in the process now of these vaccines being developed. So this is the moment for us to advocate, because there's no need to really use cell lines from aborted fetuses. There are other cell lines that can be used to develop these vaccines, and so that's why we think it's very important at this moment to let the voice not only of the church but other concerned citizens to voice that we all want a vaccine. We realize that's important for our public health, but we also want a vaccine that has no ethical problems in the way it's developed.
That being said, what is your specific message to the FDA?
Well, we're encourage them to create incentives for the pharmaceutical companies that are creating these vaccines to use cell lines that are not implicated with abortion. And so I think there's an opportunity at this time, as we're in the development stages, for the FDA really to give strong guidance that we want an ethical, a vaccine that's been developed ethically. And so we're hoping the FDA will take seriously that recommendation and encouragement.
As you mentioned, we all want to see a cure for COVID-19. That's not even a question. But Your Excellency, can you speak to how we can't allow this high-stakes time to compromise our values or conscience?
Yeah, I think there's no reason for this vaccine to be developed using cell lines from aborted fetuses. So I think all we need really is for our pharmaceutical companies to realize that this is offensive to a large number of Americans, and um, give them the encouragement, give our government the encouragement to make sure these vaccines are not morally compromised in any way.
Absolutely. Your Excellency, our world has taken drastic measures to protect people, especially our vulnerable populations, from getting the coronavirus. As the chair of the U.S. Bishops' Pro-Life Committee, do you think there could be a lesson in all of this when it comes to the importance of protecting human life?
Yeah, it's interesting because even some figures of public officials that don't support us on protecting the lives of the unborn, they've made statements in the midst of this crisis that every life is precious, every life is sacred, and as a culture and society, we're going through enormous lengths to try and protect the elderly and those that might be susceptible to the virus where it's much more dangerous for them. So I think it's admirable that we as a culture are taking these steps to try to protect those that are most vulnerable to the virus. And I think hopefully that can translate into a similar concern for the lives of the unborn as well.
Absolutely, I hope so too. Well, thank you so much for your pro-life leadership and for joining us here. Archbishop Joseph Naumann, Chairman of the U.S. Bishops' Committee on Pro-Life Activities, thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. God bless.